name's Aaron Rice with Jodar Farms. We're all-natural, free-range chicken, pork, and eggs. We're right now servicing the Longmont Farmers Market, Boulder Farmers Market on Wednesdays, and then also the Fort Collins downtown market. We've got a CSA that we operate. That's about a 75-member CSA.
My name is Pat Burry. I'm with High Altitude Organics. We're on 12.5 acres in between Hudson and Keensburg, Colorado on the Eastern Plains. We have about somewhere between 160 and 200 laying hens. I have about 200 meat birds, 20 pigs, 11 ducks. I think diversification is the key to what we do. The markets that we serve are primarily direct to consumer with a little bit of wholesale, primarily selectively. I've picked certain markets that I'd like to be in, and I pick one market in that area. I think what is becoming bigger, maybe even than the organic movement, is locally sourced food. And I think that's becoming the bigger issue. Anyone can come out here and say, I want that chicken or I want that turkey.
As a young farmer and somebody beginning, you need farmers markets to go, introduce your product to your customers. It's nice to be able to diversify into wholesale markets and things like that. We have the ability to be able to maintain a strong following because we've been at the farmers markets for 3 years, and so people know who we are and what we're all about. We invite people out to the farm, come see what we do. And, that's really the mainstay of what we do, is we just make sure that everybody is happy, from the animals that are grown here to the people that take them home and put them on their table.
We have a separate compost for manure and a separate compost for like household scraps. Where we have our chicken compost, we let the chickens turn it, and when it gets about halfway, then we make a good turning, and then after a year it's put on our fields, either on the pasture or it's put on the garden.
What we do is we take all of our bedding and pile it up here, and then manure. I think one of the biggest problems maybe is the size of it, and keeping it able to turn it and things like that, because it does, you have to have a tractor for that.
Last year when we got tons of water in the spring, I saw some places of standing water, and in those places we use mosquito dunks. I use fly parasites and things like that too. If people are in an area where they have runoff problems, swales are your biggest, in berms, are the biggest way to contain that. But then you have to worry about, when you do the swales and berms, you're going to have a problem with, it's almost going to create retention ponds if you don't have enough drainage. So you really, French drains can help. That's money. But French drains are one of the things that can keep water diverted, especially away from buildings and other water sources. You also have to be very careful. We don't have ponds or things here. You have to be very careful with fencing that off from livestock. It's very tempting to let the livestock just run in the pond. It's not a good situation either for the livestock or for the pond.
Given the number of animals that we do have here, animals do die, and so we have had to deal with this from day one. Initially we were burying them, but we found that wasn't really a real good way to dispose of the chickens, and so we actually compost them. We dig really deep down into our new hot compost, and then we lay them down there with some nice green stuff to add to the fuel, and you toss them into the compost pile and you let them sit for weeks, and then you come back through to turn it and they're essentially gone. It's amazing how hot the compost can get and how efficient it can dispose of dead animals. Luckily for us, given the way that we raise chickens, we don't have that much mortality, and so we don't have to deal with that on a large scale. 1 or 2 a day is pretty common, and that's that's easy for us to dispose of given the amount of compost that we actually have.
Dead bird disposal has been an issue. We've composted, but what we find is that we've become a bait station for predators. A lot of what holds the dust down is the fact that we do have a ground cover of like decomposing branches, twigs, leaves, things like that.
We do have a little bit of dust issues, especially this year because it's been so dry, but wetting down the areas and keeping them out in grass has helped significantly.
When we came here, most of the outbuildings were here, but in very poor disrepair. So the first thing we did was go one building at a time, like what does this building need? Like the chicken coop had wood shakes that were original from the 1920s probably. We had to pop all those off because the roof was leaking like everywhere. And there was like sagging boards and all kinds of things. So we braced all that up, put a new roof on, made a lot of things work here through recycling and reusing the things that were already here.
These are some of our meat chickens here. These guys just got moved out last week. So what we do is we start off with these large coops here that are kind of handmade. We have a greenhouse plastic on the top. It seemed to work really, really well early and late season. It kept them nice and warm during the day when it was, 30, 40 degrees outside. But the problem with it is it gets just so hot in the summer. And the shade cloth doesn't seem to do much to help keep it cool. One of the best things that we've done though is we've opened up all the sides for better airflow, but also with that roll down plastic. And so when the wind comes through or it starts raining or it gets cold, we can drop those sides down really fast, and it buttons it up really nice. As soon as we're finished up, with the cycle of chickens, we move to a new location so that bedding gets piled into compost and we start all over. I don't reuse bedding just because I like to start with nice fresh stuff, but we do constantly add new bedding to the coops. We like to make sure that they have nice dry bedding. That's one of the mainstays of having healthy chickens, is keeping their bedding nice and dry.
Because we're not raising confinement birds, we don't have climate controlled. We have to go with what's happening in the climate at that time. During the heat, we misted, and that will bring the ambient temperature of the atmosphere, even around the birds. It will bring it down. And when it's 105 out, that's a huge, huge deal.
We really take advantage of like spring and fall where, growing chickens, that's the prime time to grow chickens. So we get all our growing into those, I guess it'd be about 4 months of prime growing season. And then we do go through the summertime, but we try to not overload them, because of the heat.
My number one predatory strategy here is the llamas, because they make a horrendous alarm sound, and they do kick. I just swear by them. We have every predator known to man here except for bears and mountain lions that I know of. The other big thing that we have is barn owls, bald eagles, and red-tailed hawks. Mostly I've seen red-tail. If you have foxes and raccoons, my heart goes out to you, because you've got to sink your fencing down a foot and run it at an angle so nothing can dig underneath it. You have to be a lot more diligent. When I lived in Golden, I had tons of fox and predators. We lost 67 meat birds in one night, so I know what that predator pressure is. But out here between the llamas and good fencing and cover, I think, hopefully, so far so good.
The biggest predators that we have here are going to be coyote, fox, raccoon, skunk, I guess we did have some issues with owls, so the aerial predators are a problem, but not as common. The biggest thing for us for predators is to maintain a presence of our dogs walking around the farm, leaving their scent. I think we still lose a couple here and there, but we had more problems at the beginning, and I think with the presence of people walking around constantly around the farm, we turn a radio on with talk radio, and I think that helps, add to the human presence and keeps the amount of predator issues to a minimum. We also lock all of our birds up at night. We've had to, over time, learn what is good enough and what's not. And so we've had to reinforce several different coops and things like that to make sure that nothing can get in there. And so really those are our biggest issues, and I don't want to say we've eliminated them, but we've kept them to a minimum. We start with a couple of different things for our feed. First things first is we get a delivered all natural ration that's mostly comprised of corn and soy. This comes from a local feed store in town. So what we do is we get this. It has no antibiotics, no growth hormones, no animal byproducts. Like bone meal is a pretty common filler for industrial poultry feed. So what we do is we take this and then we go ahead and we toss it in here. Then the next thing we do is we take this stuff here, and this is spent brewer's grains. So this comes from one of two local breweries in Fort Collins, and this is pretty much the barley, the wheat, depending on what they're brewing, all those different grains that they use, and when they're finished, it's a byproduct for them and it's a feed product for us. So what we do is we take this, toss it in here, and we try to stick to about a 50-50 ratio. Let it go ahead and mix around for a little bit. And what you end up getting is this sort of mixture of the two, where it's just a moist feed. These guys, because they grow so fast, their bone density doesn't usually hold up, and so you've got leg problems. A lot of other problems that the industry, I think, has is heart issues. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that they're just literally growing so fast that their bodies can't keep up. So what we do is, we don't sit these guys in front of feed all day long. We don't feed them 24/7. We pull them off the feed for a while. And I think that really slows them down, and it helps keep the problems from arising. We've got city taps all over the property that we've had put in over the years, and that's basically what we use. The majority of our business uses for feeding and watering the animals. This is an automatic watering system. This actually took a long time to develop. So it's just gravity fed. We fill up the large reservoir up top and let the chickens drink the water down. As soon as the water gets drank down far enough, a little spring action goes on inside and lets more water out. I like the automatic waters, but I also use some just basic trough waters.
I believe that most diseases, not all, but most diseases can be prevented by management. It comes down to how you manage the birds you have, overcrowding being the worst culprit, that and damp conditions. I have used quarantine and just getting them out of a stressful situation. And we have some smaller buildings for that where we can put them away from, I've even brought chickens in the house. Most people are going to cringe at that, but I have had chickens in my bathroom. Hopefully not more than a day, but you do what you have to do. I really care for the animals that I have. I do give some medical care where it's needed. I use some things like VetRx which is for respiratory. If I hear chicken sneezing, I will put the VetRx in the water. I just believe that, like I said, management practices will go a long way toward having a healthy flock or a healthy herd.
Back in here, this is what we call the brooder room. And what these are just a brooder hut, and this is where all of our birds start the first 2 weeks of their lives. It's a great way to keep them nice and warm, keep them nice and dry. You can see the water's up front here, and then you've got your feed on the sides. And these guys will actually be going outside here in the next probably 4 or 5 days, and so they're getting pretty big.
I've tried all kinds of things, and one of the things that I tried doing was incubating. And I found out early on I didn't like it. And some people really like it, and that's more power to them, but I don't like it. So I started with birds from the hatchery, and I've added every year replacement birds from hatchery.
We have a walk-in freezer here that we store all of our product in. It's an outdoor walk-in. It was sort of a random pickup that we found. I think my dad got it off Craigslist, and it's temporary for now until we can get something a little more permanent built. But it's the only way to store what we have, the amounts that we have. If we tried to work out of chest freezers or uprights, there's no way. Well, we could talk all day about processing issues. You know, in the state of Colorado, to technically sell a chicken or any meat product, it has to be processed in a USDA facility. And so having that USDA stamp becomes almost essential. The problem, though, is there's very few small-scale processing facilities for poultry. We happened to come into being able to operate one when we got started. Had we not had that, honestly, I don't think this would have worked. I don't think we'd be standing here talking today.